There is a truth you've been avoiding, a truth that has followed you for years quietly, invisibly, patiently. And no matter how many goals you set, how many habits you try to build, how much motivation you gather, you always end up right back where you started. Maybe you've noticed the cycle. You rise with enthusiasm, then fall into doubt. You move forward, then sabotage yourself. You want to grow, but something in you keeps pulling you back to the familiar. And if this is reaching you now, it's because you're finally ready not just to hear the truth, but to confront it. So let me begin with a question, one that might unsettle you. What if the life you're living right now, the patterns you keep repeating, isn't a mistake, but a reflection of something deeper, older, and more powerful than your conscious intentions? Think about this for a moment. There is a reason you fear change. Even when you crave it, there is a reason you protect old wounds, even when they hurt you. There is a reason you keep returning to the same emotions, the same habits, the same life. And that reason is the truth you must confront. Because until you face it, you will never break the cycle. The truth you're afraid to see. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And this is the truth you've been running from. Your life is being shaped not by your goals, but by your fears, not by your desires, but by your avoidances, not by who you want to become, but by who you are afraid to confront. It is the unexamined parts of you, though, repressed memories, the unresolved pains, the unchallenged beliefs that keep you stuck in cycles you can't escape. But here's what no one tells you. You are not trapped because life is unfair. You are not stuck because you lack discipline. You are not repeating the same patterns because you're weak. You are stuck because part of you believes it is safer to stay where you are than to become who you could be. Let that sink in. Really feel Italiano. Somewhere inside, there is a version of you that is terrified of expansion, terrified of uncertainty, terrified of stepping outside the story it has always used to protect itself. This fear is subtle, invisible, and deeply ancient, and it expresses itself not through logical arguments, but through emotional resistance. You feel it every time you procrastinate, every time you avoid the difficult conversation, every time you numb yourself with distractions. And here's the shocking part. The fear isn't actually about failure. The fear is about identity. Because to grow, you must become someone your old self no longer recognizes. That is the truth you keep avoiding. What your fear is protecting, Friedrich. Nietzsche once wrote that the snake that cannot shed its skin must perish. But shedding your skin is terrifying. Letting go of who you've been feels like death. And in a psychological sense, your ego is not trying to sabotage you out of malice. It is trying to keep you alive, according to its outdated definition of alive. Your unconscious learned long ago that certain ways of being kept you safe. Staying small kept you unnoticed. Avoiding conflict kept the peace. Not expressing your emotions prevented rejection. Never dreaming too big saved you from disappointment. And so, now, even as an adult, part of you believes, if I grow, I will lose something essential. I will become vulnerable. I will enter the unknown. This is why change feels threatening. This is why you sabotage progress. This is why you keep cycling through the same behaviors. You're not afraid of the new life. You're afraid of the death of the old one. But here's the truth Nietzsche would remind you of. Growth is always a form of death, and rebirth is always a form of courage. Why good enough is the most dangerous place to be, Viktor Frankl once said. When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. Look closely at your life. Maybe things aren't terrible. You have some stability, some comfort, some moments of joy. Your life is fine. Good enough. Not great, not deeply fulfilling, but not painful enough to force you to change. And this is the most dangerous place to live, because deep down, you feel the emptiness. You feel the restlessness. You feel the unexpressed potential pulling at you. You feel that quiet voice saying, "This can't be everything." There is more. You are more. But that voice threatens the life your ego has built, so you silence it with distractions, routines, and surface-level pleasures. You build a life that looks fine from the outside, while knowing something essential is missing on the inside. Frankl understood this emptiness. He believed humans can endure almost any suffering, as long as they have meaning. But a life without meaning slowly drains the soul. And when meaning is absent, cycles become prisons. You wake up, do what you do, repeat the same day, the same habits, the same thoughts, and you call it living. But it isn't living. It's maintenance, survival, a slow, quiet decay. And it continues until you confront the truth, the hidden engine behind every cycle. Let me tell you something that might change the way you see your entire life. Every cycle you're stuck in is powered by a belief you haven't questioned. Not a logical belief, not something conscious, but a primitive emotional conclusion formed years ago. Maybe you learned, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve success. People leave. Dreams don't come true. If I fail, I'll be humiliated. If I shine too brightly, I'll be judged. These beliefs became invisible frameworks. You don't think them, you feel them. They inform your reactions, your hesitations, your fears. While Carl Jung believed this comes from the unconscious shadow, Napoleon Hill believed it comes from mental conditioning. Two different frameworks, one identical insight. Your internal blueprint always wins. Not your goals, not your motivation, not your intentions. You cannot outrun the architecture your mind is built upon. Not until you confront it, not until you bring it to the surface, not until you face the truth. Your life will not change until you change your relationship to fear. Confronting the truth. You've avoided. So what is the truth? Here it is. The cycle will never end, because the cycle protects something you refuse to face. Maybe it protects your comfort. Maybe it protects your identity. Maybe it protects a wound that you're afraid to open. Maybe it protects a belief that you don't want to challenge. Maybe it protects a version of you that no longer exists. But the protection has become the prison. Think about this carefully. Whenever you approach growth, real growth, deep growth, you hit a wall of internal resistance. That wall is not random. It is not weakness. It is not laziness. It is the boundary of your old self. And every cycle is simply your old self pulling you back into its radius of safety. If you want to escape, you must do something difficult, uncomfortably, and deeply honest. You must let the old self die. You must confront the belief that keeps you small. You must face the wound you've avoided. You must step into the identity that scares you. You must allow who you once were to dissolve, because only then does something new emerge. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the painful but necessary journey toward wholeness. Friedrich Nietzsche called it becoming who you are, a lifelong rebellion against your own limitations. Viktor Frankl called it meaning, the responsibility to rise, even from suffering, toward something greater. But all three of them pointed to the same truth. Transformation requires confrontation. The moment everything starts to change, something powerful happens. The moment you face what you've been avoiding, the cycle loses its power. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop living unconsciously. You begin to see. Your procrastination is fear. Your hesitation is self-protection. Your distractions are avoidance. Your comfort is camouflage. Your excuses are armor. Your patterns are defense mechanisms. And with this awareness comes choice, real, conscious choice. You can choose growth over safety, truth over comfort, meaning over distraction, identity over habit. And this is where everything begins to shift. You no longer fight your cycles. You understand them. You decode them. You see the architecture behind them, and when you understand your patterns, you stop being controlled by them. This is what Carl Jung meant when he said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your job is not to chase the light. Your job is to confront the darkness. Your job is to face the truth. Your life is asking you to rise. If this message has reached you, it is not random. Maybe you've felt the tension growing inside you, the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the quiet but persistent call to evolve. Maybe you've been sensing that the life you're reliving is too small for the person you're rebecoming. Maybe you're beginning to realize the cycle isn't a curse. The cycle is a message. A signal. A warning. A wake-up call. Your life is trying to evolve you. Your soul is trying to grow you. Your future is trying to pull you forward. You are being invited to confront the truth and step into the person you've always been meant to be. You can ignore it. You can delay it. You can distract yourself, but the call will return. Again and again. Until you finally answer, because deep down, you know you are not meant to repeat your life. You are meant to transform it. The final truth you must understand. Let me leave you with this. The cycle ends the moment you stop running from yourself. Not when you become fearless, but when you face your fear. Not when you feel ready, but when you step forward anyway. Not when the path becomes easy, but when you stop choosing ease over purpose. Not when you fix yourself, but when you embrace the parts of you you've abandoned. Freedom doesn't come from control. It comes from awareness. It comes from truth. It comes from the courage to let your old self fall away, so the new one can finally take its place. And if you've listened this far, something in you already knows. The cycle is ending. The transformation has begun. All that remains is the choice. Your choice to step across the threshold. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Becoming You and keep growing with us.